Hi everybody, this is a video showing the answers for the Trig Lesson 5 homework, solving two triangle problems part 1. And so here's the assignment. Number 1 says solve for the indicated side in each of the following, and in A it wants us to find from x to y. And the way to do that, guys, is what we need to do is figure out this little length here, which I will call A, and we need to find this little length here, which I will call B, and then we we add those together to get the length XY. Okay, so in the top triangle we have this angle, and right across from the angle is the opposite side. We know that across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, so the 18 must be the adjacent. So we have the adjacent and we are looking for opposite. So we write down our acronym SOHCAHTOA, and we can do that because both of our triangles have 90-degree angles in them. We're looking for opposite, we have adjacent. Opposite, adjacent, that comes from tan. So I would say tan of 37 degrees is equal to the opposite is A, the adjacent is 18. And remember, to get A by itself, we simply multiply both sides by 18. And we would get A is equal to 18 tan 37. And if I get out the virtual TI, since my angle is in degrees, I need to make sure I'm in degree mode, which I am. So I would go 18 tan 37 and press enter. So 13.6 to 1 decimal place. That's going to be meters. All right, and now let's figure out length B. In the lower triangle, we've got 33 degrees. Side B is the opposite. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. So again, the 18 is the adjacent. Okay, so we're looking for the opposite, and we have the adjacent. Opposite and adjacent comes from 10. So I would go 10 of 33 degrees is equal to B over, the opposite is B, the adjacent is 18. And again, multiply both sides by 18. And we will get that B is equal to 18 times tan 33 degrees. 18 times tan 33 is 11.7. And we can then say therefore, the 3 dots in a triangle, that means therefore, xy is equal to a plus b. Add those two sides together. And let's do this. 13.6 plus 11.7, and we end up getting 25.3 meters. And if we check the answer key at the end, it says 25.3 meters. So it's consistent with that. Okay, in letter B, it wants us to find MN, this distance right here. Okay, and you'll notice that MN is not in a 90-degree triangle. We have the big 90-degree triangle on the outside completely, and then there's this smaller 90-degree triangle. So we have to use those two. And so the plan of attack is actually this, guys. We have to find from O all the way to M, which we could call Y, let's say. And then we need to find from O to N, which we'll call X. And if I go Y, take away X, it will leave me this piece here. So So I take like the whole line y and I subtract off that x distance, it will leave me mn. So that is our plan of attack. And so to get y, first of all, y is part of the whole big triangle, which is made up of this whole big angle right here, 23 plus 13. So there's the angle straight across from the angle is the opposite side. So this is the opposite. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, and so this is the adjacent here. So again, I'm looking for opposite, and I have adjacent, so that's tan. So we would go tan of that whole angle, 23 plus 13, is what, 36 degrees? Tan 36 equals the opposite is y, the adjacent is 13. And multiply both sides by 13. And we will get y equals 13 tan 36 degrees. .4, and that's going to be millimeters. Okay, now we need to figure out x, and so to get x, notice that x is just part of this triangle here, and so we've got the 23 degrees, across from it is the opposite side, so the x is the opposite. Across from the 90, if I erase some of this blue stuff, across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, so the 13 will be the adjacent again. Looking for opposite, and I have adjacent, so that's tan again. Okay. So we would go tan of 23 degrees is equal to the opposite is x, the adjacent is 13. And multiply both sides by 13 to get x equals 13 tan 23 degrees. 5.5. Okay, and then we can say, therefore, the length mn is going to be equal to y minus x. The whole y length, take away the x, will leave the mn piece. And if you go y minus x, it would be 9.4 minus 5.5, and we get 3.9 millimeters. Okay, and that too is consistent with the answer key. Good, so now we are on to part C here, find RS, which is going to be very similar to the last question we just did, because RS is right here. Okay, and it's not in a 90-degree triangle, so what we're going to have to do again is we're going to have to figure out this whole length here, which we can call y, and then you find this length here, which you can call x, and you go y minus x, and that will leave us rs. Okay, so to get y, we're using this whole angle, and across from it is the opposite. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, so this must be adjacent again. Okay, so I'm looking for opposite. I have adjacent. That comes from tan when you do SOHCAHTOA. Oops. SOHCAHTOA. Okay, so We're looking for opposite. We have adjacent, so it comes from tan. So tan of the angle, oh, and it's actually showing that the whole angle is 67 degrees. So it's going to be tan of 67 degrees equals the opposite is y. The adjacent is 18. And since you're dividing y by 18, you just multiply both sides by 18. Okay, so 18 tan 67. And we get 42.4, and that's going to be millimeters. So there's y. And now let's go and figure out x. Maybe we can erase some things. Oops, I should have left that at least. Leave that this is y. Okay, so for x, to get x, we're going to use this little 90-degree triangle right here. And we've got a 29-degree angle. The x is the opposite. And we know that across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. So again, this must be the adjacent. Looking for opposite, and we have adjacent, so that comes from tan. So tan of 29 degrees is equal to opposite x. Adjacent is 18. And multiply both sides by 18. So x is equal to 18 tan 29. And so x is equal to 18 tan 29, and we get 9.97, but that would get rounded up 1, so that would actually go up to 10.0. And then we can say, therefore, RS is equal to the y length minus x and I'm just going to do this calculation right now, and I'm going to go 42.4 minus 10.0 is going to be 32.4. What is that? 1C? They have 32.4. Fantastic. All right, let's get on to letter D. They want us to find DE, which is right here. And so this looks to me like it's going to be a stepping stone one, because we have a 90-degree triangle here that has a side and an angle. Okay. So that means we can get other sides and angles. We've got a 90-degree triangle, so SOHCAHTOA applies. So what we're going to have to do, guys, is get this length here, x, and then once we have that, use it to get this side y, which is DE. Okay, so in the first triangle, there's our angle, so the x is the opposite side, and across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, and I would say to myself, which ratio deals with opposite and hypotenuse? Opposite and hypotenuse, that's sine. So it would be sine 78 degrees equals x over 12.4, opposite over hypotenuse, and then multiply both sides by 12.4. So x equals 12.4 sine 78, which is 12.1. Okay, so there's x, and now let's change the dynamic of this. We have now just figured out x as being 12.1 millimeters. And in this other triangle, we have this angle. So this side is the opposite. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. And we are looking for y, which is the adjacent. Okay, so this time we are looking for adjacent, and we have hypotenuse, adjacent, hypotenuse, that comes from cos. So it would be cos of 41 degrees equals, the adjacent is y, and the hypotenuse, it was x, but we found that x is 12.1. Multiply both sides by 12.1, and we're going to get 12.1 times cos 41 degrees. Okay, and that ends up being 9.1 millimeters. And y is equal to that side DE, so DE is equal to 9.1 millimeters. Okay, in the answer key they have 9.2, so rounding, just have some rounding discrepancies there. Okay, so I wonder if maybe they went like this, 12.4 sine 78, and just kept that whole number. So that's really what x is, 12.129, blah, blah, blah. And so then we're supposed to go that times cos 41. Okay, so if you do that, then you'd get 9.2. Okay, but if you round it just to 12.1, then we get 9.1 as an answer. So either is good. All right, let's get on to letter E here, everybody. This one wants us to find HJ. Okay, so HJ is made up of this small side here, let's call it X, and then from I to J, let's call it Y. So we'll find X and Y and then add them together. So in the first triangle, there's our angle. Right across from it is the opposite side. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. And so the 25 must be the adjacent. Okay, so we want the opposite. We have the adjacent. That comes from tan. So tan of 41 degrees is equal to x divided by 25. And then multiply both sides by 25, and we are going to get x equals 25 tan 41, 21.7. And then in the other triangle, we have the 22-degree angle. Right across from it is the opposite, so there's the opposite. Hypotenuse is across from the 90, and so beside the 22-degree angle is this, the adjacent. So again, it's opposite and adjacent. So I would go tan of 22 degrees is equal to, the opposite is y, the adjacent is 25. Multiply both sides by 25. 10.1. Okay, so we found x, we found y, and to get hj, we add them together. Hj is equal to x plus y. Looks to me like 31.8 meters. Answer key says 31.8 meters. Looks good. Okay. In letter F, it wants us to find PO. Let's call it X. This looks like a stepping stone question, I think. Yep, we have an angle and a side in this bottom triangle, so we could use that to get the common side in the upper triangle, and then use y to get x. Okay, so in the first triangle, there's the angle, cross is the opposite, across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, leaving this one to be the adjacent. Okay, so we are looking for opposite and we have adjacent, so that's tan again. Tan of 78 degrees is equal to y over 7. And multiply both sides by 7. And we get y equals 7 tan 78 7 tan 78 32.9. Okay, now let's erase some things. We have just found that y is 32.9 meters. And they want us to figure out x. Okay, we have two sides of a 90-degree triangle, so that means we should use Pythagoras. And remember, across from the 90 degrees, that's the side that we would label C, and then A and B don't matter. And so A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. A is 4, so it will be 4 squared plus, what is B? B is x that we want to find. And C is 32.9. So we have 16 plus x squared equals 32.9 squared is 1082.41. Subtract 16, x squared equals 1066.41. And then you go square root, plus or minus. Square root of x squared is x. We're going to take just the positive answer, and I'm going to go the square root of that. Bang, 32.7. That's going to be meters. And we will just say reject negative answer. Reject the negative answer because we are finding the length of a side. Okay, but mathematically, if we were to square that negative answer, we would get a positive. Okay, but it's okay. That was 1F, and we get 32.7 in the answer key. Good. Okay, number 2, solve for the indicated side. But then it's asking us to find angles. So that really should say solve for the indicated angle. Side. Well, there's one question that wants you to find a side, and that is letter C. So we'll say solve for the indicated side or angle. Okay, in A, find angle BAC. Angle BAC is the angle that you get when you travel from B to A to C. So that whole angle right there. All right, so basically what we have to do, guys, is you have to find the two little angles and add them together. So we need to find angle alpha right there and angle beta and add them together to get angle BAC. Okay, so in the top triangle, there's the angle. So this is the opposite side. Across from here is hypotenuse, and this is adjacent. Okay, so we have the adjacent and the hypotenuse. That comes from cos. So I would say cos alpha cos alpha is equal to the adjacent is 18, the hypotenuse is 23. And remember how to get the angle. You have to go cos inverse of 18 over 23. So you go shift cos 18 over 23, and that is about 38 degrees. I notice the answer key goes to 1 decimal place, so let's say 38.5 degrees. And then we'll figure out beta. So there's angle beta. Right across from it is the opposite. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. And so the 18 will be the adjacent again. So we have adjacent and hypotenuse. That comes from cos. So cos of beta is equal to 18 over 21. So beta is equal to cos inverse of 18 over 21. So shift cos 18 over 21, and we get 31 degrees. And so we can say, therefore, angle BAC is equal to alpha plus beta, which is 69.5 degrees. Okay, and if I look at the answer key, 2A is 69.5 degrees. Perfect. All right, in part B, it wants us to find angle ABC, which is actually this angle right here, this little one. Okay, so here's our plan of attack. This is what we have to do. We need to get this large angle here, which I will call alpha, and we need to get this smaller angle right here, which is called beta, and subtract those. If I were to go alpha minus beta, it would leave this piece right here, which is angle ABC. Okay, so to first of all get alpha, this side over here would be right across from alpha, which is the opposite, and across from the 90, we're working in the big triangle, is the hypotenuse. And so this would be adjacent. Okay, so I have adjacent and hypotenuse. That comes from cos. So I would say cos of alpha is equal to 14 over 24. So alpha is cos inverse of 14 over 24. Shift cos 14 over 24, and we get 54.3 degrees. .3 degrees. And now let's get, let's get the beta angle. Okay, so this whole angle was alpha, and we want to get beta. And so in the smaller triangle across from beta is the opposite. This is the hypotenuse, which we have. Maybe I could write legibly. Which means this guy is adjacent. So adjacent and hypotenuse again. So that's going to be cos. Cos of beta is 14 divided by 19. Shift cos 14 divided by 19, 42.5 degrees. And you know what, I'm just going to uncircle this one because that's not our final answer. So our final answer, we can say therefore angle, what is it? ABC angle ABC is equal to the whole big angle alpha minus beta. 54.3 minus 42.5, bang, 11.8 degrees. Okay, and 2B in the answer key is 11.8 degrees, so perfect. Okay. Letter C wants us to find side length AG, okay, which is right here. They want us to find that. Okay, and notice we have two 90-degree triangles. We have a 90-degree triangle that's flat along the bottom of the box. That's flat on the ground or the table, like that. And then we have a 90-degree triangle that stands up like this. Okay, and so the plan of attack is we are going to work in this 90-degree triangle down here, which is flat on the ground, and we're going to use Pythagoras to get that length C, because it's across from the 90, so it's C. So we'll call this A and this B. We're going to figure out that length C, and then we're going to use Pythagoras in the standing up triangle to get that diagonal across the box. Okay, for starters, let's get C here. C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. A is 9, so it will be 9 squared plus 12 squared. So C squared is equal to 9 squared plus 12 squared, which is 225. And then I would go, you know what, I'm just going to give a little bit more space here. And then, of course, to get C by itself, we go square root, and say, hey, the plus or minus could work. But since it's a side length, we are going to reject the negative. So C is equal to the square root of 225, which is 15. Okay, so I've now just figured out that this side length is 15, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this triangle right here to get that diagonal, and the diagonal is across from the 90 degrees, so now the diagonal is C, and we can call the 15A and the 8B. So the C squared that we want is equal to A squared plus B squared. A is 15, so 15 squared plus 8 squared, so C squared is equal to 15 squared plus 8 squared, which is 289. Wow, and I think the square root of that is 17, but we will see. Okay, so then to get C by itself, how do I undo squaring? I square root. Be plus or minus. Answer could work. So C is equal to the square root of 289, which is 17. And that's going to be in meters. And that's the answer we want. And I'm just going to put a little note about reject negative answers. Okay, and that is how you do letter C. The answer key says that 2C is 17 meters, so we are right on. Good, and finally letter D, find angle ABC. So they want us to find this angle. So our plan of attack is to use the first triangle here with the 17 and the 31 to get this side, and then use the x length that we get and this 7 to figure out angle ABC. Okay, so in the first triangle, there's the angle that we have. So this is the opposite. The x is the hypotenuse. And this is the adjacent. Okay, so which ratio deals with adjacent and hypotenuse? That would be cos. So cos of 31 degrees is equal to 17 divided by x. And remember, when the equation is in this form, x ends up equaling 17 over cos 31. So x is equal to 17 over cos 31, and we get 19.8 millimeters. So I'm going to replace this with 19.8 millimeters. And now we are going to try to get angle ABC. Across from it is the opposite, so that's now the opposite side. Across from this 90 is the hypotenuse, so this must be adjacent. Okay, so we're going to be working with opposite and adjacent. That comes from tan. And we want to find the angle ABC. We don't have a label for it. Maybe we'll call it alpha. Tan alpha equals 19.8 over 7. Shift tan, 19.8 divided by 7, 70.5 degrees. What does the answer key say? It says 70.5 millimeters. Okay, so it shouldn't be millimeters, that should be degrees because we were finding an angle. All right, number 3. In order to find angle X in the two triangle problem below, you need to first find the length of AC. True or false? AC is here. That is the side that is in common to the two triangles. We would be able to use this and this to get that, and then from there we would be able to get angle X. So this is true. Yeah, we do need to find AC because it is common to both triangles, and then that will help us get angle X. And finally, number 4, what is the length of HG? Write your answer in the numerical response box provided to 2 decimal places. So they want us to find HG, which is right here. This looks like a stepping stone problem. So what we're going to do is use the first triangle, this angle on this side, to get into the second triangle there, that X. So if we've got the 40-degree angle over here, this is the opposite side. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, okay, which leaves this side to be adjacent, but we don't know what it is. So we're going to be working with opposite and hypotenuse, which is sine. So sine of 40 degrees equals the opposite is 5, the hypotenuse is x. And remember that these two switch in this scenario. 5 over sine 40. So we go 5 over sine 40, and we get 7.8 centimeters. So now I am going to replace this with 7.8 centimeters, and I'm going to use this triangle here. We have that angle. Right across from the angle is the opposite. That's the side we're trying to find actually now, right? HG, so we'll call that Y. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse, which means the 7.8 is the adjacent in that triangle. So I'm looking for opposite and I have adjacent, so that's tan. Tan of 30 degrees. Tan of 30 degrees is equal to the opposite is y, the adjacent is 7.8. Multiply both sides by 7.8, and we end up with y equals 7.8 tan 30. .5. Okay, now in the answer key they have 4.49, so they probably carried more decimal places than the 7.8 here, and so either way, if you have 4.5, that's good. I think here's how they would get the 4.49. 5 divided by sine 40 is that, so using that whole number instead of rounding that to 7.8. So 7.8 would be in here, and we ended up going 7.8 times tan 30, so multiply that by tan 30. Okay, and there's where we get the 4.49 from. Okay, but if you do 4.5, we would have to put a 4 here. There's the decimal point, 4.5, and then you like color in the 4 here. This was back when we did provincial exams like this. Okay, so those are the solutions to trigonometry lesson 5. and I hope you guys are all doing well, and I will talk to you soon.